We'll call this meeting in order. We call the roll.
Kinsey,
Yes, here.
Logston,
Here.
Mossberg,
Here.
Parker,
Here.
Turner.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next item is recognition of the visitors. And you've got them all filled out? Okay. We've got that written down. Next item is consideration and action to approve the minutes of the August 13th, 2018 minutes.
I move we approve the minutes of August 13, 2018.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Parker,
Yes.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston.
Yes. Next item, number 6. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll move back up. Item number 5, reports. City Council report.
Couple things. Just nothing horribly relevant to the business of the airport board, but bring to your attention some of the stuff City Council's got going on. You'll see on the agenda today, the City Council accepted the branding guidelines that have been in place for the signage projects as well as some of the tourism promotions that are going on. And this is our new letterhead. It's come out of that, incorporating the Alva, Oklahoma logo along with the tagline that they're using, "Where Charm and Adventure Meet." We have, at the last City Council meeting, we approved 2 of the Water District contracts for rural water. So those, District 3 is meter is on airport property, I believe. So, but that doesn't change anything. We just have approved them at the new rates that are consistent with what the governmental rates are for the rest of the city utilities. The business manager, chief of police, economic development specialist, myself, and 2 of our council members will be attending the Oklahoma Municipal League meetings and annual conference. Leaving tomorrow. Joe might be leaving tonight. I don't know.
No, I'm leaving in about noon tomorrow.
Leaving tomorrow. Meetings go through Thursday, and there's quite a bit of, if you guys would like to see, there's a pretty good agenda of education sessions, and some of it having to do with festivities and event promotions, and economic development, all the way to open meeting, open records information. So should be a good lineup for. I'm excited that we've got so many attending. This will be the most we've had in attendance in quite some time, ever maybe.
Maybe ever.
Maybe ever. So, so that's good. You know, we had a pretty lengthy agenda last month. We did approve ordinances for marijuana in relation to the 788 state question that passed, and we also will be approving ordinances for the new alcohol laws as a result of the new legislation on the alcohol laws. So that'll be effective October 1st, so we'll be ready for all that. Sir?
On your marijuana things, they're in compliance with state law, right?
They are in compliance with state law.
And that's for everything inside the city, right?
Yes.
Is there anything that conflicts in there with federal law? Reason being is everything out here put them under federal jurisdiction.
There's nothing that should be in conflict with federal laws.
Okay.
We've got everything that we've got is in conjunction with the state law. They are still working through their administrative policies, but there will be special things that happen for federally funded locations, such as here in the school. If we get federal funds, we won't be able to have it on property. It's basically, I think that's what the bottom line is. And
I just want to make sure that whatever testing procedures you have for employees and stuff like
Yeah.
that, there's nothing that's in confliction with
No,
federal
there's
law?
not.
Okay.
We updated the governing ordinances for the cemetery board, and, approved our firefighters contract. It seemed like there were 2 pages worth of agenda items, so there's quite a bit of action items that we had last month, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Other questions?
A couple of operational things I'll add that we are working on right now down at City Hall, and we are in communication with Tyler on this, or Tyson on this. Is we are in the process of updating our website, making it more user friendly, making it better. In conjunction with that, we will be probably doing something with the airport's antiquated website to make it more ADA compliant and make it in where it's easier to navigate around and find and update and do all those things that we need to be able to do to it. We are also looking at getting a new phone system citywide, upgrading that. Through those upgrades, we expect over time, may not be initially, but certainly over time, there will be some operational expenditure decreases because of savings there that we're going to be able to realize. And there was one other thing.
Work order?
No, that's really not going to be a lot out here. The website, the phone. Well, it'll come to me and
While
I'll
you're
send
thinking
you.
of that, I remembered one other thing that will be relevant in the future, and that is likely be relevant. Nothing set in stone yet, except that the council and the county commissioners have approved the project plan for the tax increment district for the Arena Authority project, and so that may at some point change the purpose of what's the fairgrounds have been, and whether or not the county commissioners continue to use that. So if now would be a good time to start thinking about potential uses for that, if there are any airport uses that we'd want to consider, or other opportunities. It's likely that won't continue to be the site for the Woods County Fair.
And I did remember the third item, and that is we are looking at contracting out for computer maintenance services and upkeep. That would include the airport. The gentleman that we were doing that in-house, we have reassigned the person that was doing that, so we're looking for a replacement to be able to take care of that, hopefully in a better manner.
Any questions?
Okay, if there's nothing else, we'll go on to the next item, 5B, which is the airport manager's report.
Okay. Fuel cells, we'll go over that. Had another great month. 23,670.09 is total. And the total gallons is almost 6,400 gallons pumped. It's an increase, compared to last August, an increase of over 7,000 better in August of 2017. I ordered a pretty large amount of avgas a couple weeks ago, 8,000. It's as big of a semi-load as you can get, and that's normally what we do. We usually get 7,500 or 8,000, and this is the first time I've actually ordered 8,000 gallons. But I caught the price low, and I kind of wanted to go over that because in avgas it's higher to get jet fuel's not as high of an expense when we do it, but avgas is. And from what I understand, there's a $25,000 cap with the city, and that sometimes it'll go over that. So this one was $29,000, and I went ahead and pulled the trigger and ordered it because fuel was low, and I wanted to told Kelly and Joe Don kind of, I don't have much time. Because with avgas, they don't have a truck next day when I order it. They're having a hard time finding drivers, and it might take a week, week and a half, and I got to get that stuff ordered while it's kind of like playing the stock market. And so that's kind of a little deal. I got to get it ordered, or if we go over 25,000, we got to go to the city council or whatnot to get that approved. And so it's something we kind of need to discuss. I think the best option to do that. Hopefully, gas will come down someday where we don't go over that, but we just get a bigger discount when we get the bigger truck. And usually, it's every 3 months about when we have to order a truckload. Then there's another, that third month we can kind of play. We got about a month's worth of time to watch the prices, and as they go down low, we can get it. So that's on fuel, and really we've got, I think on avgas we could probably make it the rest of the year. We may have to get one more order in December, but we're pretty stocked up there. Then some other things that we've done, fire extinguishers were all inspected this time around, so they're all good. We had some decals come in for the fuel trucks from Phillips. Kind of a nice thing they sent after they got a good report from us. They sent us some decals for the trucks, and they just got here last week. So we're going to try to get those put on soon. I've researched some benches for outside the terminal. It's one of Terry's requests. Atwood's has some for $69 and $99.99 on sale because we're coming into fall. Walmart didn't have any. G&G didn't have any. I'm still going to kind of look, but I want to get some benches outside the terminal in the next week or two.
As far as benches are concerned and prices, you may want to look at OCI.
OCI?
Yeah.
There, and City Hall, and I've got stuff out of there, and it's what's corrections, isn't it?
It's through the Oklahoma Correction System.
And they, it's only used for governmental entities, and so
we get a little bit better price on a lot of things they deliver, they set up. What goes wrong with it, they'll come out and fix it.
okay. Inventory's a little limited, but sometimes they have what you're looking for.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't just real impressed with the options around town. They had benches that said like family in the back of, I didn't think that would be the greatest. So we're going to try to get a couple of those. Terminal project is going to start next week, the repainting project. And weather permitting, will be 7 to 10 days in completion. Some other items we've done, we've greased some bifold doors, some squeaky little maintenance projects around the airport. And we're still researching the fuel tanks, the 300-gallon fuel tanks. I just got that note from you, Joe Don, Thursday.
Okay.
We're still researching that deal.
And all that's going to have to happen there. The city has a policy ordinance that we follow along those lines. I don't see an issue with it, but we still need to follow that policy.
Okay. And then the last idea I came up with, and I was just going to put this out. When I was here last term, we talked about an overhead door for the round top. I didn't know if you guys were still interested in that, getting quotes to put a little overhead door in for the shop area, where we could put put the little tractor in there and fix it or whatnot. We could even store it in there. But we had got some quotes, years ago on it, and I didn't know if we could revisit that and look into it.
I can,
You have any input on?
I can put that on the next agenda.
You even have prices?
Well, I know it was like around, this has been 6 years ago or 7, but I think it was right around 2,000 to 2,500 to have it installed, if my memory serves me right. We had 3 quotes, and then I went on, and I don't think the project ever went through, but I know it was in the middle of the oil boom. Some of the contractors were super busy, and I know that they probably just didn't get to it, but I just think it would be handy to do it if we can. Just, like the round top, it's tight when we got both, tractor in this side and a mower in this side, and we're having to move one and put an airplane in and move them back in and out too. And that's really, we noticed the U-joint is out on the PTO on the avgas truck. So that's one thing we're going to have to jump on soon. We're going to have to get that thing fixed. We're afraid it may come apart and hit the drive shaft and cause more problems.
Yep.
So that's all I have.
So
It's a short report.
between, so the first 2 months of the year, am I understanding correctly, we're up about 10 grand over last year on fuel sales?
I'd have to look, but every month has been quite a bit higher. And I put total gallons in there because we're actually, we're netting off of how many gallons we sell more than the price. And then try and stay competitive with all the airports around us, so. But I could put a spreadsheet together with all the months, and we could just keep track. And just put a whole
So
spreadsheet
if
together.
we're
You
having-
can see every month.
If we're having an increase in revenue, I'm a lot more inclined to be okay with the,
With like a door and all that
with,
stuff.
some extra stuff that wasn't necessarily in our budget.
Okay, gotcha. I'm gonna throw one more idea out just on the table when we're talking about fuel. Just a marketing idea that I had is we've kept track of every jet, every aircraft that's come through here. Just when we put fuel in them, we got their N number, we got their information, and we can dig that up. And I think it would be neat if we could, some of those jets that we may have lost that don't stop here anymore, send them something in the mail, under new management. Here's a 10-cent per gallon discount next fill up if they want to come back through Alva and see the service that we got. And with jet fuel, we're able to mark it up a little more than that avgas. We're making a dime to 20 cents more and keeping it lower than our competitors. So I mean, it's just a thought. I mean,
If you got it, I don't have a problem with that.
so.
Yep.
Just offer that to the guys that have been through here and say, hey, stop back through, give you a dime a gallon discount. Give us another shot.
Okay.
Marketing's not a bad idea.
That's all I have. Is there any
That
questions?
that should probably be an action item at the next meeting, at the next agenda also.
Well, it used to be on the fuel, the manager had a 10-cent discount privilege, but
I didn't know that, and that's the first time I've heard that.
from years ago when the pricing structure was set up, but we can revisit it next meeting if you'd like.
I didn't know anything about that. All I know is that the board just set the price. And they
Yeah.
should, if we're gonna make adjustments to the price, they probably ought to approve that adjustment officially.
Yeah, I can look up in my archives.
Yeah,
Find a copy of
as
it.
far as that,
Is it-
what you're talking about, I had no idea, no clue about.
Yeah.
If that's in it, then it won't require any board action. But
Yeah,
you say 10 cent or 10%?
It's 10 cents.
It's 10 cent per gallon.
And the contingency was for 10 cents?
Yeah, that was set up many years ago.
And really, some of these guys have award cards. Not a lot of times it happens, but they get a 10 cent per gallon discount if they have a certain wings card that they're traveling all the time, and we honor that with our fuel supplier. So sometimes a guy can get just with that card, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why, that's the reason we kind of mark it. We can mark our jet fuel up a little more than we do our avgas. So. It's usually the jet flyers.
Well, if we can do it, do it. If we need to approve it, let's have it on the next agenda.
Okay. That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Anybody got any questions for Tyson? If not, we'll go to item 6, discussion and action on AIP project, the design phase of apron repair and layout.
what that is we've got the contract, grant contract paperwork, and city council has to, it requires city council approval and acceptance, and just thought I'd bring it before this board to have y'all make that recommendation that city council approve me signing that grant.
City council will meet on the 17th, so
Yeah, and I've already talked to FAA and apprised them of our dilemma as far as timing, and they said, well, we get it approved on the 17th. The attorney and I sign it that night. We can scan it and send it back to them, and then mail it to them. And then as soon as the minutes are approved, send those minutes in. That it's FAA paperwork. Is basically all that it is.
Anybody have any discussion or questions? Anybody want to make a motion?
Make a motion that we, so this says, what are we making a motion on?
Recommend to the city council that the business manager sign the grant agreement.
That's number 8 though, we're on number 6.
we're on 6.
Yeah.
Approve.
That's what you approve.
Right, but see, we're on this one right here. It's got
That
nothing
is
action on it.
this one.
But that, what you talked about is number 8,
No.
right? Well, that's, I recommend to the city council. We're
Yeah.
recommending here that you approve it, okay.
No.
Or that you sign it,
Right.
okay.
And actually, I'm sorry, it is on there twice. It is on there 6 and 8.
Yep.
Same thing.
So
So we can make a motion to approve 6 and 8
I'd say,
combination.
you see, number 6, number 8 doesn't have any action at all.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion.
well, I'm sorry. We're gonna. It looks to me like 8 has the dollar amount. 8 has the who's going to sign it and all that. It would be
So-
more specific.
Okay, so we'll not take any action on 6,
To be
and then we can go to 8 and approve, make a motion to approve or whatever on 8. And we can come back to 7.
Right, so we're skipping
So
8.
we're skipping to 8.
All right, I'll make the motion that we recommend to the city council that the city business manager sign the grant agreement with the federal assistance for the AIP such and such in the amount of $107,820.
second.
Got a motion and second, call the roll.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston.
Yes. Okay, now we'll go back to item 7, discussion and action on supplemental grant funds from the FAA.
That's you, Jamie.
Yes. So, part of this conversation is going to be answered a little bit, or there's going to be some more detail and some additional discussion on this. The FAA, they are accepting grants right now, or grant requests for that supplemental appropriation. The 2018 grant request period is over, and kind of as we discussed before, that was geared, that's really geared more towards projects that were kind of already underway and short on funding. So really the target, and the best target to look at is the 2018, or the 2019 grant. This program, supplemental appropriation, should go through 2020, but there's some significant concern that funding for 2020 may not be there by the time the grants are issued for the 2019. One of the things that I've kind of heard, or maybe some interest with the lighting, the future lighting project, work to pull that up. The other item that we've discussed in the past was looking at the construction for the apron project and applying for that in the supplemental appropriation. One of the benefits of going with the apron project over the lighting project is one of the things that they're looking for are the projects already cleared through the environmental assessment. And one of the things that we have for your apron project at this time is a categorical exclusion for the apron. We do not have that for the lighting project, and that takes some time to get that. So with that being the case, what Garver would like to recommend is that Alva ask for or request a grant with the supplemental appropriation, and ask for that to cover the construction cost. And I'm going to recommend phase 1 and possibly even extend that beyond, with the argument that, as we're going to discuss later tonight, is we can show that there's a need for quite a bit more apron than what Alva's going to be able to construct even in the next 2 construction phases. So that would allow you to meet your immediate needs. One of the things that we can put in that application is Alva Regional Airport is used for firefighting, when the wildfires are coming through. That's historically been the case. I visited with Tyson. He's provided some really great information that the apron's full at times when we're trying to do that. And there's concern about being able to allow more additional aircraft to come through. So with that being the case, kind of started working on it. I was like, well, I really need to find out which direction the airport wants to go on that. If we want to still, look at the lighting project, or if we'd like to focus more on the apron project. And once we kind of have the decision that you'd like, the direction you'd like to go, we'll get that wrapped up and get that to Joe Don so that he can bring that to the board and execute that. And the deadline for that is in October. So.
Yeah, I think me personally, I think the apron project is more important than the lighting at this point.
And Garver agrees with you on that, especially with the with having a place to stage and be ready for the firefighting and support that effort during those key times.
I would agree. I mean, we talked about this in the past. And when you had those 3 planes in here for firefighting, it pretty well hogged up the ramp. And,
There's more than that.
Yeah,
but
I mean, there was airplanes waiting to park while others were leaving,
Yeah.
And
So-
you mentioned that you may have a photograph of that when the apron was.
Ah,
If you did, I'm
yeah,
just saying, if you do,
yeah, I've got-
if you
we
can shoot
may
that
have
to
it.
us, that'd be great.
I might be able to dig that up and then.
I'm
Yeah,
shameless
we-
as far as inserting that into the application package and
Yeah.
saying, here's a graphic. I mean, it's not part of, what's required, but if it can help tell the story, then we'd love to use that. So,
And we've been trying to be more proactive about having, fly-ins and air shows and all that, which will fill up ramp, the ramp too.
Yeah.
right.
Any additional activities we do.
And
so,
just so I understand, this doesn't do away with the lighting project.
No, it just delays it.
delays it, puts
So-
the apron in front of it.
Right.
So, I'm glad you brought that, because there's some additional discussion to have. One of the things that, as Garver's working with the airports and one of the things that is unique about this, the grant is it's 100%, so the sponsor does not come up with a 10% match. The other benefit is it doesn't take away from your NPE money, that you're currently banking or using as you go through that process. It's supplemental to that. The one catch and caveat, and what we are working to, ensure that it doesn't come back and catch a sponsor, and bite them at the back of the project is, if you are approved and granted the money for the project and the project comes in over costs, unlike a standard AIP grant where you can ask for a grant amendment later on, the sponsor would be on the hook for that additional cost. So what we would do is we would take what we look at as phase one and expect the cost, we're typically multiplying by about 1.2 and using that for the estimated cost of the project with the expectation it'll come in slightly below that. There's not a penalty for the construction costs coming in slightly below, but it is more challenging for the sponsors to deal with that should the construction costs come in above what the grant is for.
When you say 1.2, what do you?
Just the construction cost. So when we go through and we estimate the construction cost, we're factoring it at about 0.2.
Of what?
Of what we would normally estimate that cost to be.
As efficient.
Well, because what I historically and what I've found here in Alva is that
Probably more than point.
what you're probably at about a 0.4
Okay.
for here.
Yeah, and that's 0.2 on top of what we would do regionally for different areas. But if we'd like, if the airport and the city would be more comfortable with, a little higher factor on that, we can do that. The goal is to ensure that
I don't want to jeopardize. I don't want to jeopardize us in getting the supplemental funds.
Right.
And if that extra is going to jeopardize it, I don't think I wouldn't recommend that at all. But if it's not going to jeopardize us in possibly getting funding to be on the safe side, I'd rather go a little higher than lower.
So, if you want to call it a penalty, here's the penalty that would be seen for such an action is if you do get if you are awarded the grant, you're awarded a grant for a smaller project, or it might be seen as once that goes, because the cost typically for an AIP project, the costs are based upon bids, hard bids. Well, in this, they're based upon estimates, and that's why the FAA is saying, okay, if your estimate was no good and your project comes in quite a bit higher, you're taking care of that on your own.
Right.
So the only downfall of factoring it up a little bit is maybe you get a little bit smaller project, but still it'd be a huge bonus to the airport to get that. And
So,
Can we not start the project until we have a firm bid? We can use an estimate to
Right.
receive the money and then get a firm bid, and that way we know before dirt is turned that we will be within budget.
yes, you will have to have a bid before you start the
Yeah.
project. You
Yeah.
have to
Yes.
start construction. I
Right.
believe it's within 6 months, which is not
Okay.
a problem. And the other mechanism that we frequently build into our projects are add alternates, so that if we've got a project,
Okay.
we'll have a base bid and we say, hey, this is what we consider needs to happen on this project, and these are pieces that we really want to happen, and we prioritize those and use those as add alternates. And that way, the FAA doesn't allow you to use bids to go estimate a project. That's expressly for bidding within the FAA's Airport Improvement Program. But you can use add alternates to help ensure that you get as much project as you have funding available.
If we come in under budget, the excess money stays with the FAA, or do we bank that
Yes.
for?
No, that would just, and there again, that's what I'm saying, you may get a little bit smaller project, but
Yeah.
at the same time, you're not at that risk of, well, we either A, can't do it because the bids came in so much higher that the city cannot cover the additional money, or we gotta come up with that, and you just have a little bit smaller project.
so in your estimation, you're going to start out including, I always call it the Alva factor, because we experience it about every time we do anything. But you're gonna include that multiplier.
Yeah, and you'll, and I'm
And
gonna,
then on top of that, you're saying 1.2.
right, yes, sir. Okay, yes, sir. And I've got some numbers that we'll discuss a little bit later, in another segment of our discussions. And that does have the Alva, the northwestern Oklahoma factor built into it. It's just, materials are not as cheap to put in place in this, this part of the state.
Yeah.
As compared to
On the
central
ARP,
Illinois.
the lighting was always after the ramp project, so we haven't bumped it further back. It's still where it is.
Oh, okay.
What
And
it is,
actually,
it does-
this moves the whole
may
thing
actually
forward.
speed it up.
Yeah, this just moves everything up.
This brings
Yeah.
it forward. The only, now, and here again, this is, I'd like to walk away from this conversation realizing and truly and being confident with what the cities and airports' concerns are. You could say that there could be a concern and a need for lighting because it's not safe, it's not performing, or we really need to improve it. That could be, that helps. That it's presenting the need. It does help when you're putting the wording together and structuring how you phrase your application. So, but I think with what's been experienced even this last year, having aircraft stage on the apron, needing that extra space, would that be in the next project? You already have the categorical exclusion in place for
Yeah.
it. I think that definitely puts you in a good
And
position.
toward what Kelly's question was, what this will do is just speed that lighting project up, because we'll fund this one, the ramp project, quicker,
Yes, sir.
and then that moves that, the lighting project can take place of the old where the grant project was.
And let's just face it, the way it's been raining right now, when it dries up, the grass next spring is gonna be just the same as it's been the last few years, and they're gonna be fighting fires again.
Right, they will.
It's gonna happen.
It'll be worse this next spring because of the rain.
Yeah.
We have a question from a visitor.
I just had a question on, have we thought about putting a taxiway in the middle of the runway, which is, all smaller aircraft uses. You have to, I've seen airplanes come in here and back taxi, the taxiways are put on each end of the runway instead of having one in the middle. And it's just so inconvenient. I've seen planes come in, back taxi to the one they just missed. I mean, so if you could look at your planning and see if you could put a taxiway in the middle of the runway, it'd sure help. As far as planning. Suggestion.
Yeah, I don't think it's called out on this because this is just an apron project.
No, it's not. One of the things that would have to happen is, if the airport was to do that, is that need to be identified and put on the airport layout drawing and plan. FAA is not going to fund a project that's not on the ALD. So if the board identifies that as something that is of importance, it's something that would be added to that, because that's what the FAA looks at. They say, how is the city and how is the airport planning to use this money that the grant money that we're putting together? They just want to see that forethought. Not saying that an emergency can't come up, because they do.
Well, it's not an emergency situation by any means, it's a convenience situation.
And that's part of improving an
It
airport.
clears the airstrip quicker, those kind of things.
Do you want a motion from us supporting the apron?
I think that'd be good, and then that definitely gives some definite direction on how you'd like for to proceed on your behalf and preparing that.
My question to what Max has brought up, within the request that we had on the $107,820, the first, we talked about background, expansion of the apron and the reconstruction of the taxiway, would that not fall within?
But it was, it wasn't construction of new, it was removing old, so you didn't have direct access to the runway.
Okay, so the reconstruction, okay.
Yeah. Okay, anything else on 7?
Well, I make a motion that we,
Okay, I was gonna entertain a motion
I'm not sure how to
next.
type my word.
Proceed with construction of phase 1 and the apron and the supplemental appropriation grant.
Okay, that's the one, okay. I make that motion.
Jimmy, could you say that one more time?
Proceed with including construction of phase 1 construction of the apron project and the supplemental appropriation grant application.
Okay.
Glad you're
Okay.
taking minutes today.
I get a motion, anybody want to second that?
I'll second.
I get a motion second, we call the roll, please.
Kinsey,
Yes.
Mossberg,
Yes.
Logston,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Next item, remarks and inquiries by airport board members. We talked about last meeting about the possibility of doing something with the concrete culverts down south. Have you
The what?
talked to concrete culverts?
I'm getting, people are telling me where they're 40 to 50 bucks a piece. You know,
Well-
we need to get rid of them.
Yeah,
I think.
anything to get rid of them. Have you talked to any county members?
I have
Council?
not.
Or, okay. Okay. You might pursue that a little more, and then
Okay.
I can put that on the, if we
Next
have
agenda,
something,
if we
I
got-
can put that on the agenda for next time.
Okay.
Probably want to declare those surplus at the next agenda too.
Yeah, yeah.
If the purpose is to get rid of them.
They're left over from the runway project that happened
Years ago.
15 years ago, or however long it was. They're a hazard to mow around. Okay.
About how many feet of them you think we have? Remember how many there was? 20,
What I did yesterday.
24. I think.
We got them all wrote down somewhere, we should
Yeah.
have. So,
They're on my list.
they're in various sections. Longest, I think, were 8 foot, weren't they? 8, 6,
8,
and
6,
a
and
couple,
4.
2 4s, I think. So, and then 2 culvert mounts. I remember that. Seems like there was.
And they're 4-foot diameter.
Yeah.
3.5. I think there were 42 then.
42, yeah, 42. So.
Okay.
So,
You just put those up at supply, we just put those up at auction, like a surplus auction, your city auction.
Well, once they're declared surplus, we'll, get rid of them as the best way we can, either by sealed bid or auction or.
Would there be
eBay.
I'm just wondering if we're going to be looking at drainage on some of our, storm drainage on some of our streets, would they complement a project that we could credit the airport and,
Yeah, they're rather large.
well, there's a lot of water that runs.
Yeah.
Some of the projects that I'm looking at, some of the things I'm looking at for that, I'm not sure that they will be able to be utilized in that manner. Right now, I've got about 3 different things in the works as far as drainage for downtown.
Okay. I'm just making sure that we didn't sell them off if we needed them.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they could maybe be used.
Okay. Any of the airport board members have anything else? If not, we'll go on to the next item, remarks and inquiries by citizens. And we have nothing?
So I came to the airport, was it last week, with an inquiry. I teach physics at the university, and we have a rocketry club. It's not an official student organization, but one of the ideas that came out of the members of that club was holding a rocket launch for the public. And we've done rocket launches at area elementary schools, small model rockets, and we were thinking that if out at a location such as the airport, then maybe it would be a nice central location for the general public to attend. And depending on how it was pitched, marketed, they could even bring their own rockets. we have the know-how to launch the rockets. They've competed in a regional, turning into a national competition, the Argonia Cup. So it was just more of a gesture or a partnership, and we just wanted to enter a conversation about possibility of having a rocket launch out here, out at the airport. There are different class rockets that are launched. There's class 1, class 2, and class 3. So you can look that information up on the different rocketry websites and FAA. We'd basically be looking at class 1, possibly class 2. The trade-off or the part of the partnership might include the students launching their own experimental rockets for testing purposes. These rockets have altimeters and they've got electronics on board. They typically go about 8,000 feet, 6,000, 8,000 feet, and they've got a GPS unit. And for those rockets, FAA waivers are required, and then communication with the local airport. So we just thought that was kind of a natural partnership if we're going through those steps, hosting the launch here for those purposes as well. So we're talking about two different things: possibly launch for the public once a semester or so, and then possibly some activities for the club to complete some research, which would include launching their own rockets and then testing for ejection charges for deployment of parachutes. So just to entertain a discussion, and I didn't know if the airport would be open to something like that.
So you've read into the FAA regulations on that?
Yes, yeah, so if,
And so it's something that we could do here if the proper waivers, that stuff's filed?
correct, there would be some question about the class 2 rocket launch, but in terms of testing charges and then launching class 1 rockets, we could certainly meet the minimum distance between spectators and rockets, and minimum distance between launch and the buildings. So these are solid fuel, commercially available motors. They wouldn't be what are called sparky motors, sparky motors are a fire hazard, but those are high powered, so we wouldn't be involving with those.
Yeah, I think we probably need to look into it a little bit with the FAA. I could see something like that requiring NOTAMs and closure, if it's done on the airport, closure of the airport.
Closure, yeah.
And some things like that.
It can almost be like an air show. Get
Yeah.
the waiver, do the drawing.
Right.
Yeah, in
Back
fact,
to the
it's
altitude, height.
it's the same
you know,
waiver.
Waiver all
Yeah.
that airspace.
Okay.
And I wonder if there's any other airports that host those, maybe we research. Has anybody heard of any other airports hosting?
I'm trying to think of
Yeah.
Max Westheimer, because they have Sooner Flight Academy, they have youngsters that do rockets there, but I think they have pretty well just gone to like air pressure type models, and that's what I'm aware of. I'm not saying they have others, but that's the only one that I know of.
I mean, I don't see a problem partnering with your class university, I think, as long as we're not creating a situation with the FAA. that-
Right.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to jeopardize it.
Yeah. You're in first names basis with the FAA guy down there.
Yeah.
That's
Thanks.
Uh,
On good terms.
Yeah,
Good
okay.
terms.
Would you mind quizzing
Yeah, I
him
can do
about
that.
that and see
Yeah,
if there's
quiz him.
any reason why we can't do that?
I can do that.
Okay.
the same kind of, that's the same kind of waiver.
They got a new guy down there.
Yeah.
Thought. I don't know. Could be.
Yeah, so in general, for the class 1 rockets, FAA waivers are not required. The only thing that is hobbyist, any amateur hobbyist can fly those rockets. They just have to maintain a minimum distance away from a structure.
Yeah.
But
on an
being
air,
at an airport,
what have you read about it being on an airfield?
well, there's nothing specific about the hobby rockets in vicinity to an airport. It's just for the class 1 rockets, that is. For the class 1 rockets, it's just how far away are you from the nearest structure, and do you have clearance? By clearance, I mean, do you have a radius from the launch pad appropriate for the height that the rocket's going to be flying?
I just want to make sure we have a jet and we shoot something
But-
off, we're not creating
Yeah.
PTSD for it.
Yeah, see, there's
Or worse.
restrictions for There's restrictions for drones and remote control aircraft and things like that.
Since the drone things come alive, there's all sorts of stuff out there now. So we'll have to, that's one reason we just need to check to make sure.
What kind of time frame were you looking at?
Well, again, I was just wanting to begin a discussion. We're not under the wire for any particular dates. I knew that this would be a process that might take some time, so.
Okay.
Cool. I'll do some research on it.
Okay. Anything else from the
Jim?
citizens?
When do, we're to present different options for the,
Why don't you go ahead and do that
is
now?
that okay? To do-
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
I don't want to find out.
You got 2 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, put it up here, okay.
Chairman, I yield my time to the,
No, this is absolutely my fault. I've got kind of 4 bunched up copies. I should have had 6. But I only made it with 4. But and you'll notice. I'll put it on the screen also, and this will help.
Anybody else need one?
We can look at this one.
Okay. We got an extra here.
So what I'd like to discuss is we've got some alternatives. We've been kind of working to lay out some different alternatives on the city and the airports getting ready to invest some serious money and capital into the airport. And instead of Garver coming to you and saying, hey, this is what you're going to do, we'd like to come to you and say, hey, these are the arguments that we can use to justify doing what we want to do. And then just work with the airport to identify the preferred option and where we'd like to spend that money. This document right here is a form. One thing to really pay attention to is up on the upper right part of the sheet. You have the Group 1 and Group 2 aircraft. Group 1 is going to be your small, your small single engine, 160 horse engine. Your Group 2 are going to be, a little bit larger aircraft. Once again, we visited with Tyson. He's done a great job of providing information on the fleet mix and the records that he's taken since he's been the manager here at the airport. And we didn't really see that they're all Group 1 aircraft, or all Group 2. So there's a pretty good mix of those two. And the reason for going through that exercise is to identify, well, how much apron does Alva Regional Airport need? And what we like to do is have a very defendable answer to that question when somebody asks or when we make a recommendation to spend money. So one of the method that we use to do that is the FAA has a sheet for calculating the square yards of apron that are required for transient aircraft. And the 2 methods for that calculation are, pull this up and I'll make it easier to see. So I'm just going to run through this and this kind of give you an idea. There's 2 methods. This column that's here on your left, this column is based upon the aircraft that are based upon at your airport. And it typically is going to yield a much higher number than this column on your right, or at least for a regional airport the size of Alva. The column on the right is based upon operations per year. And then that's going to, that's just going to be based upon the operations that are taken into account and what the FAA has on record. And depending upon, if you do not have a lot of instrument approaches, then typically those numbers are kind of low. If most of it's visual flights.
these are our numbers?
Those are, yes, those are. And here, I've got another document. That information came from your 5010, which I have right here. There you go, Kelly. This is the 5010 for the Alva Regional Airport, and so this is where we pulled the information, and then this is where the documentation is coming from. If you look, at the top right portion of your sheet, and we just pulled this today to print it off, and the number's gone from 45 down to 44. But it shows that the based aircraft at Alva Regional Airport is 44 aircraft. And we use the number 45. It's either error on our part or something's changed since we put that in. But that's how we calculate the information on that left column. And then on the bottom, the operations on the operations is what we use to calculate the area required in the right column. The other thing that this spreadsheet does, and the reason I said when I kind of initially pointed it out up here in this top corner of the page, there's a difference in the apron size requirements for Group 1 or Group 2 aircraft. Well, that's naturally just due to the size of the aircraft. And in that work that we did with Tyson and taking that information and distilling it down to what we're going to use, we decided that the method that we'd like to go with is consider about 50% of the transient aircraft to be a Group 1 and about 50% to be a Group 2. And that kind of fits with that information that we've received. So, all that being said, if we take those and we take the Group 1 aircraft and we take the Group 2 aircraft and you look at the back of your page, and if you like to follow through calculations, there's so we've got a Group 1, we're taking about 50% of those. A Group 2, we're taking about 50% of those. We're showing that we're a 50-50 mix. It shows that, overall, if we just go based upon annual operations, the airport needs about 8,800 square yards of apron. And that's what can be justified, and we can make a really strong argument for that. And we'll show you in some graphics later. We're calculating that you have about 6,500 yards of apron that's already in place and not used for fueling operations or other operations as such. Vehicles moving around the terminal building, things like that. So the net is, if we go with just based on the annual operations, the net need for additional aprons is about 2,200 yards, square yards.
And our existing is just this area right here.
Yeah, and I'll go over that here a little bit later. And we can come back to this if you'd like. I'm going to jump down here to the bottom of this page. Now, if we go with based aircraft, and we go with the same 50-50 mix, you notice that there's a considerable increase in the area, that you can argue for need an apron. And, we go from 2,200 to about 8,600 additional square yards of apron. So what we've done, and is this area. So we have a fuel pump right here. So we've identified this as unusable apron. You're not going to park aircraft there. You're not going to taxi through that area. We also have a fuel pump down here. And Tyson, this is kind of why we were visiting with you a little bit earlier, saying, hey, what do you do with the jet fuel and filling up these jets? But we pulled this out of the existing apron area with anticipation that would be area that would be tied to and committed to fueling operations. And with that being the case, and without looking at these aircraft that are on here for this discussion at this time, but this area that has the kind of the 45-degree lines, we've identified that as existing apron that you have in place. And that's where this number on both the calculations, that's where this number right here, the 6544 comes from. So with that background information, what I'd like to discuss is if we go with a 50-50 mix in Group 1, Group 2 aircraft, and we go with area calculations based upon operations, this is the amount of apron that we can justify and say, hey, this is dependable and arguable apron that Alva needs for your airport. Okay. As I'm going to show you in this next, and then we're calling that one option 1. Option 2, it's the same area. Whatever I want to show you is we can slide this up or down, north or south, in between taxiway Bravo and taxiway Alpha. We can slide that wherever the airport feels like it'd be of best value and best use to them. That's not a problem. But you're really going to pick up 3 additional tie downs in this area. And the other thing that we've taken into account is with the jet fuel being down here, and oftentimes when you have a larger jet come in, there's a value in having one tie down location, one location dedicated to them, somewhat close to the terminal. We don't want to block the terminal from the rest of the airplanes coming in, so that's kind of why we've identified this just to the south of the terminal building. But we just wanted to show that as he makes that turning maneuver, we still have one tie down in this location.
One thing you're blocking is the taxiway coming from this building. If they're parked in here, they cannot leave.
I agree with you, and that's why we want to identify this area kind of up here as you know, unless you've got a better place you'd like for that to be, identify this as where we would park the, you know, that larger aircraft that would come in.
But I'm saying you've got our existing ramp area calculated too high.
Oh, okay.
Because we can't park in that area.
Right.
Because that's limits access to that building.
Yes, but let me show you one other component of this worksheet here. On the bottom of the worksheet right here, there's three different scenarios. They're kind of hard to read in this spreadsheet and the way they print it out. When you're looking at it in a live PDF, it's a little bit different. But this scenario up here, if you choose this, and you can see we have with taxi lane selected down here. This area is just tie downs. You know, if you can choose, I just want my area calculated based upon only tie downs. Or if you say my tie downs just, you know, are at the edge of the pavement with just a tax lane going through it, or I have an apron that has tie downs and tax lanes going through it. And then that's the one that we calculated with, was both the tie downs and the taxi lane going through your apron. So we could, I will say this though, if you would like for us to remove this area of calculation for the existing apron, we can absolutely do that.
Well, that would just give us a larger need
Okay.
and justify our.
Well, let's come back and look at this after we start looking at what's some costs.
So Dale, what you're saying is take existing apron that's not ideal.
Right.
Okay.
You know, you can't. That has to be a taxiway.
Right.
There's
Tax lane to get
seven.
out of this.
There's 7 aircraft that blocks from their use, from their being able to
Oh,
use.
so
them.
really what you're saying is that's not existing apron.
It's not parking.
Shouldn't be counted as
Okay.
apron.
Gotcha.
It shouldn't be crosshatched.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, we can take that out and absolutely do that. So, and here again, option 1 and option 2. They're really the same amount of additional payment. We're showing that we're not set on putting it up here as we have it in option 1. You know, if there's a thought that it'd be better, you know, more toward the north of the existing apron and more toward the south of the existing apron, that's fine. I do want to show you, kind of give you an idea of what option 3. Let me jump to option 4. We'll come back to option 3. So option 4. This is option 4 right here. This is if we go with aircraft based at your airport, and we use that for your calculation. We can make it a strong argument, defensible argument for this much additional apron, and then that's going to add quite a few, you know, quite a bit more parking and more tie downs and space for those purposes. And then this option right here, it's just kind of another option that says, you know, we're not really wanting to spend that much money, but we want a little bit more, you know, than if we just go with only basing it. You know, if we want to make the argument, we need the apron for the based aircraft, but we don't quite have that much money. This is just showing that we can make adjustments to tie it to existing geometry and make that fit, and then work with a budget that the city's comfortable with. So the other item, and I'll pass this out. And here again, these are conceptual. These are based just upon some recent projects that we've had in the northwest part of the state, north central, northwest part. There you are, sir. I'll keep going. You guys are just for the board. You can follow along. distribute those out amongst yourselves. So what this is this is just taking into account what the cost associated with the, just conceptual cost associated with the project. Let me show you some information here at the bottom that'll get pulled up into the top. Part of the project is we do have one taxiway, the connected taxiway between taxiway Alpha and Bravo. That's included in this project. So we've kind of taken that and set that out on the side, and that shows up right here, and it's fixed throughout all options. We do have one taxiway, and this is not the one to the north, but the one with the curved geometry to the south that's been identified for removal. And here again, that number is just, it's fixed through all the different options. And then one of the items that were discussed when I was here last time is the desire and need to replace some of the concrete panels out here in the southeast part of the apron. With the understanding that the project is not necessarily to focus on that, we said, okay, let's just set aside 20 panels for that purpose. And that comes out to about $50,000 worth of work. And here again, we've set that aside or made that a constant throughout each of the different options. And then electrical, one of the things that we have identified with this project is electrical for the, as we move the taxi lanes around, we put this apron out there, and as we're doing improvements, there's going to be a need to upgrade and adjust for the electrical lighting in those areas. This is not the lighting project for the future, but this is just taking care of the responsibilities of moving geometry around. This is a fixed cost, strictly a very conceptual estimate, but it's been brought up into here, and even it's placed on all 4 options. So what that really leaves is, what is the impact on the decision on how much apron space we want to construct? And this this pairs up with the graphics that we showed there. If we just go with option 1 or option 2, based upon annual operations, and we add 2,200 square yards of material, we're expecting that's going to come in about $134 a square yard. We do the electrical, taxiway construction, remove the taxiway, panel replacement, the professional fees for bidding the project, construction administration, and construction observation. That's going to give you a total project of about $1.1 million. That's at this time, that's kind of our conceptual cost. Now, that's going to be broken into 2 projects. That's the expectation at this time, is there will be a phase 1 and a phase 2. But, for the total construction, we're looking at about 1.1. If we go with that option 4, which is just based upon aircraft that are based here at the airport, and we go through the same exercise, we've got right at about a $2 million project. So, yes, the additional pavement is very desirable, but there's quite a bit of cost associated with that. And that's where we are there. And this option 3, here again, it's kind of just to show we've got some flexibility in there. We're not here to tell you what your apron needs to look like. We're here to say these are recommendations that we're going to make, and we'd like to take your feedback and go move forward with those. So, a lot of information coming from multiple different directions. So if you want to go back and rehash or discuss something, I'd be happy to do so. Or if I'm just talking and it sounds like it's about as clear as mud, let's give it another second or third go around and make sure that you're happy with the information that you have.
Before the supplemental came up, we were looking at 2 phases,
Yes.
getting two different grants to fund that, right?
Yes.
And so now if we get the supplemental, that wouldn't necessarily affect obtaining those 2 grants.
It will not. No. That supplemental.
So if we
That's what we're being told. It's really a supplemental. It's money that
in addition
seriously
to,
showed up, and there's some stimulus type connotations with it and things like that. But yes,
so theoretically, if everything fell our way, we could afford, if we were able to obtain the supplemental and do the next 2, we could do a $1.5 million project.
And to answer your question a little bit better, so here's your 2019 CIP.
Right.
And in 2019, the expectation is you're gonna have your max amount of money that you can have in the AIP program banked and set aside. Okay. And this construction phase one, the expectation is this is the AIP money. By the time the airport and the city you do your 10% grant, it's going to be about a $650,000 project. Okay. So, and we'll come back and finish your discussion here. I just kind of want to maybe put a skeleton here and we'll flush it out as we go through it. So then if we do that, then this next year, we're going to be looking at, carrying this $15,000 over. We pick up the $150,000 for the 2020 year. We bank the funds for the 2021, and now you're looking at about, approximately $465, or banking that again and going to 2023 and doing a project of about the same scope as this. Of course, in 2023, it's not going to buy as much as it will in 2022, but there again, it just kind of depends on what happens with the economy and things like that. So this is a skeleton. Let's say that we put together the package, and we make the argument, and we in the supplemental appropriation application, we say this is what we need, and one of the major reasons we need it is for firefighting and for emergency response. And I think that's how the argument needs to be made personally. Or we can say this is the minimum we need just based upon calculations, but what's going to set Alva aside from any other airport of this size and apron? Well, it's because we use this and we have used it for emergency response, and we've been short on room having enough aprons. So if we do that and we go somewhere, we expect a project that's $600 to $1 million, then yes, that would allow you to look much more at going with picking up this going with final apron size that's based upon based aircraft. And the one caveat, and the one thing I do want to make explicitly clear, is it does cost money to maintain pavement, and that's why the FAA says, hey, we want a tool. We want you to be able to defend that you need this much pavement, because it's not cheap to maintain pavement over a long period of time. So it's kind of a balance. How much do we need? How much do we want? How much are we willing to maintain and take care of?
So if we were theoretically going to roll two, bank the first 600,000, and I say we're going to collect the second 500,000 or whatever that was. If we're going to go after the supplemental as well, how are you going to write that proposal to be able to capture those three? Or was your intent just to use the first 600,000 in supplemental to fund this, and then start looking at the electrical with the third one, or the following one, or how would you structure this?
Let's go back to let's take that question, set it aside. Let's go back to what's the desire? What if you could have what you want and what you think you truly need today? What is it? Is it this this alternate here that says that shows that we really we need as much apron as we can justify? Is that what the airport really needs? Is that what the desire is, or is it? Let's go back and let's just add some additional room, and maybe we do not necessarily set aside a place for this jet, and we maintain it. You can't really see them very well, but there's already some tie downs that are in this area right here. They're serving us well. They're doing the job that we need. We just need a little bit more, we just need some area for 3 to 4 more aircraft over here. I think that's the question I need, or would like feedback from the airport first, and then we'll kind of go back and revisit how we would approach getting to that.
Right. So you went from on your option one. showing that ramp was 150 foot north and south width.
Right.
And then you go to option 3, and it jumps to 427, so you've almost tripled it,
Yes.
going from one to that. So, I mean, I don't know, personally, I don't know if we need that much room, but we could go wider than 150 feet, right?
We can absolutely, you can make a
The ramp, whatever size we choose.
founded argument on saying we
You're
need
just-
somewhere between here
And there,
and there.
okay.
I can support you in saying we want to go with 150 foot, or if we want to go with
So this option 4 is based on our
based aircraft.
based aircraft,
That'd be the
and it would be our
Yeah.
maximum. And option 1 would be based on our,
Operations.
Operation.
Which I think that number's low.
and that
Because
would be our minimum.
It doesn't take, it does not, it's not gonna catch all your,
That'd
all
be
your
our
visual
absolute
approaches.
minimum need.
Right, right.
Well, I mean, I'm
And we're gonna fall somewhere in between there, probably around the same size as option.
well, option 3 is 427 feet, and you can see we've jumped from 1.1 to 1.7.
And option 3 is it's just kind of matching the existing
Right.
geometry that you already have. You say this is,
But if you cut it down a third, you've taken it down to about 1.5,
Yeah.
which,
If the grant money's there though.
that's where it was.
so you remember how we
Yeah.
kind of talked about add alternates? Is I think there's an opportunity to do some add alternates on this. You know,
Okay.
as we go through and we say,
You can take it
you know,
150
this is our
at a
initial
time.
target. This is what we have to have. Remember that the base bid we have to have this to make the project worth doing. Otherwise, it's not worth doing. And these are the increments, or this is how we would approach increasing that to, you know, if we've got the money and the means by which to do so, we'd increase that. The other part is, you know, if you say we want, you know, we really feel like we can justify more than that minimal space, and we would say maybe we're not at, with visiting with Tyson and kind of looking at some other stuff, we can say that operations number is a little bit low. The operations are really more in this range, and pull that number up. We could look at that. I think it would be a hard sell to say, you know, we're gonna do the max and then make the base bid just this very small area right here.
Has the OAC said no completely to doing any of those, what do we call them, hard points that we talked about earlier? Hard pads? Or-
That'd be that's a different conversation, and I started visiting with Grayson, and we got totally turned on that conversation. Because he goes, you know, his opinion was, well, typically we just do those in asphalt aprons. And he goes, but you know, if we get once we get the geotech back from Alva, which we should have that in a couple of weeks, and we can show that your pavement's not sufficient, you know, for heavier aircraft, and we need a place for that. He goes, that's something we can consider, because it's really, yeah, he goes, typically we do that. You know, his comment was, that's typically something you're going to see in an asphalt apron. So no, he didn't say no, but a far cry from saying yes. So I think maybe that's something we go back, and we should have the geotech back in a couple of weeks, and we can, you know, we show that we have a very thin section out there. You know, we're experiencing the cracking.
Well, that's part of what we were talking about on that 50,000 and
Right,
repairing it.
and that's just taking a number and saying, hey, let's go pick 20 adjacent panels or 20 really bad panels, and then say, you know, in that number we can bump that up to 25 or 30. But we wanted to give you a number to look at instead of saying, hey, let's just go replace some concrete. You know, if we replace 20 panels, it's about $50,000 worth of work. If you already have a contractor here, to pay a contractor to come and just do that work, you'd have mobilization and other things on top of that.
I like the idea of starting it out somewhere between 1 and 3, and then having an adult to get it, you know.
We can readjust once we find out what kind of supplement funds we're getting.
I mean,
And you know, if you do the supplemental package, it kind of adjust your CIP a little bit, but on how I'll say this: if you get, if we can secure the supplemental appropriations, you still, on top of that, need to do this project this year. I mean, this next year. Even, you know, even if you get the supplemental appropriations, you still need to do your AIP
Phase one.
project this year. Otherwise, 150,000 of this drops off. So, you know, if you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, well, we got $600,000, you know, I think somewhere in here, kind of on this option 3, kind of somewhere in the middle, you're looking at, and Paul, I think you were pointing this out about 1.7. Well, if you get $600,000 for the supplemental appropriations, maybe get $600,000 for your first AIP project. That's about 1.2. Then on that third project, you could pick up the tail end of this and you know, pretty well wrap that project up.
How thick is that concrete?
I don't know yet. Our assumption is our cost estimates are based upon an 8-inch PC pavement. And that part of choosing that section is because you know,
That's
6
kinda what I
inches
was
to 8 inches. Yeah, there's some cost
150
difference
is-
associated with that. But we've
Yeah.
got a project that just
So if
wrapped
you
up
cut
in
off
Guyman.
part of this
you
back
know,
down
very
here
similar
because
style
of the taxiway,
project,
that
similar
increases
style
the need.
area and things like
I
that.
mean,
So we got some
I mean,
really good numbers.
I feel
recent
comfortable at
numbers
1.4,
to work with.
1.5 million, you know,
Right.
so, I mean, somewhere in the
Yeah.
middle there, and then get in,
Well-
having like somewhere between 300 and 400 feet here.
Yeah, if we go with 200 feet and it's not enough, you can always add to it down the
Right.
road.
And that
If
is,
we
you're
use up-
absolutely right.
You use up all of our AIP for the next 4 or 5 years and we have a need, an emergency type need that comes up. You know, we've got taxiways that need crack sealed. It's not even on the AIP anywhere. Because we've got some pretty
We got
huge
some
cracks
big
in our
cracks.
taxiway out there. We'd have to do something with.
And this, are we taking a motion? Are we taking action on it? Okay, so this is what I want to walk away with. This is the target that we'd like to look at. Once we get the geotech back, we're going to be able to dial in these costs a little bit more and have better information on that. You're still going to have a preliminary engineering report, okay? And at that preliminary engineering report, you're going to have a chance to read, go through, look at, you know, how those calculations and those the information used to get to that point were developed and put together, and make an adjustment at that point also. So we don't have to walk away tonight with you saying this is absolutely the way we want to go. What I want to walk away with is we don't like that. Don't even consider that one, or we kind of like this one over here more than the rest of them. Generally, let's go this direction and proceed that way. So,
I think 1's too small and 4's too big, but that's
Yeah.
my opinion.
That's kind of my opinion too.
So let me ask this question then. You know, as we're looking at this, one of the things Cody and I, and I'm sorry, very sorry. This is Cody Wallace, and she's the engineer working with me on this project. And you've heard me mention her name before in conversations. One of the things that Cody and I have talked about is how far. I mean, we have a taxiway up here, and that's an important taxiway to the airport, and we've had some pretty hot discussions on that in just a short period of time that we've talked about this project. But one of the questions is where do you want your additional apron? Do you want it based upon the geometry of the existing apron, or do you say, hey, my terminal building's right here, we'd kind of like it, you know, if possible, you know, centered on the terminal building, with the understanding then that you're not going to have you know, if you've got aircraft parked up here, they're not going to taxi over to the fuel, but they could taxi around this way and get your fuel just fine. So that is kind of one of the other things we want to find out is, if, you know, where do you want that pavement? Do you want it centered on the terminal? Do you want it matching the existing? Is there a benefit to having some of this additional pavement down here with these hangars in this location? What's going to serve your needs and your desires?
Should it ships south to keep people from taxing?
Say that again.
rather than have it extend up to where to the north side of the pumps. I mean, do you want the ability for people to taxi through there if there's not a plane there? Or do you want that
I
apron reach
think-
further south
I think it
to
needs to
reduce
be-
that?
To me, I think it needs to come south
Yeah.
to reduce
So maybe,
that.
maybe
Yeah.
go with something more like, you know, Cody worked, I said, she's working
More
on
like
some
that.
options,
Yeah,
something more like
Pull it
this.
Yes.
down.
So they're kind of already, you know, you're forcing behavior.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Something kind of like that. Where it's still near the terminal, but you're kind of directing traffic.
Right. What are the thoughts? And here again, this is not set in stone. We can change it. But what are your thoughts? Do we want to set aside a place for a larger aircraft, such as a couple of larger jets that you have come in, or is that such a rare occasion that we say we'll deal with it when that happens and we'll put them somewhere?
I wouldn't mind having a spot up closer for a jet, because they come in, drop passengers, maybe park for a little bit, or.
Right. And if they have passengers, we'll tell you this: our experience is there's a stigma. We deserve to be close. You know, if you got a jet
Yeah.
coming in. Not saying they're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're right. I'm just saying that's something that we know exists. So we don't want to block the whole terminal building for them, but we feel like this is a good position for them to be close. But still, you've got some other aircraft, you know, that
Still
they have
maneuver.
pretty close.
Yeah.
You know, they're relatively close to the terminal building when they arrive.
Tyson, just so you know, that big plane that we have showing the moving, that's that Challenger 600, that's the biggest
600
one that you
size,
gave me.
That's the one that comes in every once
Yeah.
in a while.
And this is what Cody has modeled in. What's the software that it's not auto? It's not AeroTurn anymore. It's
Baby plane.
Baby Plane. Yeah. So it's a software that said they do study on these jets and different aircraft to get their turning radii and so that we can know for sure that we're designing something that's going to work, not just guessing. I think you can turn in this radius. This is a proven maneuver that can be accomplished with that aircraft. So they can come in. You can have them point to the north if they want to come in and turn, and point to the south, depending on which way the wind's blowing. They've got that opportunity. They can make that maneuver, even if you have aircraft sitting here, in these tie downs, or an aircraft sitting over here.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So here's what I'm going to walk away with. Generally, at this time, I'm going to say generally, we're not going to call this definitive direction, but generally, we're going to look at something maybe kind of along this lines. Put a base project together that says, this is what the first base project's going to. We're going to put together a project that can be done for that $600,000 to $650,000 project, and then the next project that will be the AIP project to follow on top of that, and design it so that if you don't get the supplemental appropriation, you've got a finished project with those two. But if you do, then basically we have a third segment there that we're going to improve upon and go that route, with the understanding that the dollar 5 years from now is not the same as the dollar today. Okay. And generally, kind of keep it in that location, in that area. So let's go back and visit this pavement here. Is it important to the airport at this time to make improvements to that pavement? Or do you want to work to do the crack sealing and maintain that pavement as long as you can? Or do we want to look at some of those panels and say, let's fix them, the worst case? The benefit to fixing them today is that anytime you can keep moisture from getting underneath your pavement, you've extended the life of it considerably, and that's adjacent panels also. The detriment of fixing panels today and not doing it as kind of a regional pavement repair is you're going to put them back at whatever grade they currently are. And if you ever think, man, I wish would improve that grade, make it a little bit smoother, take care of some of the imperfections in that area, if you're just fixing a few panels here and there, that's not the time to do it. They're going to go back the way they are, so to speak. So that's kind of it's a catch-22. We need to fix our pavement, or do the crack sealing, you know, but at the same time, if we do that, we're stuck with, we've got this investment we've made, and, we're gonna live with it for a while. And having walked out there, it's not bad, but it's not a planned grade or a consistent grade, you know, there's some irregularities in that
Yeah.
area out there.
I guess I'd be concerned with the ones where you're going to have the turning around and the parking. Make sure that we're sound there.
So one thing, so I guess I'm hearing is maybe, you know, explore these panels through this area right here, make sure that they're, these seem pretty good. It was more when we got kind of in this area right here.
Southeast.
And there's a line, a couple panels right through here that really seem to have some cracks going right through the center of them. But these in this area, it almost was a spider web. And it appears as though sealing has been done on them in the past, the maintenance has been done. So. But let's go ahead and just make a note that, you know, with the panels, we will address especially these right here for the turning maneuvers with that. And this is, you know, and we get the engineering report, read that, and that's an opportunity to say, we want to refine it and we want it to look more like this. So, okay. Any more questions? Comments? As long as there's no rotten apples and tomatoes, we're in pretty good shape. Okay. Well, thank you very much for letting us use your chalkboard for a screen. And you got that dodging the light bulb there.
Okay. Any other comments or remarks from citizens or visitors? If not, we'll adjourn.